My God, packed room. How many here are on Nostr? Let's raise hands. Look at this. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. So, this is Nostr conference, not Bitcoin conference, it seems. Yeah. Well, we have amazing panel here. So I'm just gonna welcome and announce my fellow panelists. Pablo, come first. Let's go, man. Applause for Pablo. Then Vlad, come on, man. LM Bits, let's go. And our amazing Nostr star, let's go, Will. JB. My God. 4 of us on the stage here to talk about Nostr. Pablo, you can start. Introduce yourself.
All right.
For the audience that doesn't know what you work on, but it seems we have a lot of Nostrics here.
Yeah, I'm Pablo. Pablo F7Z. I started working on Nostr a while ago, like, I don't know, the end of last year, and been building a bunch of different things to explore what Nostr is. So I built SupLife, Anna Nostr, NostriChat, Nostri.com, forgetting a bunch of them. Purple Page, I don't know, a bunch of different things. I'm like super, super excited about Nostr, so much that I decided to start working full-time on Nostr without really knowing what that actually means. But I just could not help myself. My curiosities on what Nostr allows is way, way too deep, so I'm just following that.
And I'm so glad for that, because me and Randy use your tools like every day to see who is zapping more. You know?
That's perfect.
But we will get to that. Vlad.
Hi, my name is Vlad. I'm a software developer. I work for LM Bits. I'm a contributor there. Yeah, and we build some Nostr-related tools on top of LM Bits. Right, so we have a Nostr relay. We have a Nostr signing device for which you can use to sign your messages before you send them. We're working on Nostr Market, which is a decentralized market, and yeah, also some other work that is still in progress. Right, so for those who do not know, LM Bits is it's an open source tool, an account system that you can connect to your Lightning node, and you have accounts, so you can have it for your family, your neighborhood, your business, your coffee shop, whatever, right? And then on top of LM Bits, you can install different extensions depending on your needs. Right, so some of these extensions are Nostr-based extensions.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about Nostr is like you have a lot of companies building now Nostr tools, adding it to their portfolio. But Will, you're not hedging. Like it's 100% Nostr, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Hi, I'm Will. I made an iOS client, the first mobile client called Damus. It's not Damus, it's Damus. Very common misconception.
Okay. You heard it from the man now. Now we know.
Yeah, so yeah, once we made a mobile client, it turns out people like to use social media on their mobile phones, so that's when it started to take off a little bit. So now, yeah, so it's cool to see it get to this point.
Yeah, I mean, let's start from there then. You have saw such a amazing meteoric rise over past few years. What do you think is behind that? Like why people are like so even like inspired by Nostr, and whenever you release like a new version of it's like, oh, it's celebration, new celebrate, people are reinvigorated, excited. Like why do you think, like what's behind this meteoric rise? Like what's the secret behind that success of Nostr?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of attempts at decentralized social media. There was Mastodon, so there was some excitement around that. But again and again, people just found that these solutions weren't really solving the problem. Like on Mastodon, you saw there was still just as much censorship. So I just think people are just like, they almost gave up that there was even possible that we can build a decentralized social media that works. And then when Nostr came along, like, hey, it actually works. It's very simple, and we have Bitcoin in it, which is awesome. So I feel like all of these things started to come together just once people started to see it working, and especially once the UX started getting better on the mobile clients, people were like, wait, this could actually work. And I think we're starting to see it slowly, people starting to realize that. So.
Yeah. Vlad?
Well, I'm not sure yet that it's a meteoric rise or that it's a big success, right? So we have to find ways to measure that, because in a decentralized architecture, you don't really have control, and you don't know who is doing what. So you don't know if are these real users, are these bots, right? So one good way is to see, for example, from the App Store, how many downloads Damos has. So that's very useful.
It's, yeah, 250,000 is about what it's at right now.
That's nice. Right. Yeah, but other than that, I think before we're saying like, yeah, it's good or it's not working or something, we have to say like, how can we measure this and be sure, and we continue doing it. So yeah, that's my take.
What are you thinking, like, what are the good ways to measure Nostr success, like now and in times to come?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly based on reputation and knowing, knowing that the users are real. That's the first thing. So for example, my Nostr, let's say, circle is just Bitcoiners, right? So that's one other thing. I don't really know people that are not Bitcoiners and are using Nostr. So it's like a subset of the Bitcoin users for Nostr. I don't have an answer exactly at this moment how we can be sure of.
Yeah. What do you think, Pablo?
Well, I think by definition, we can't really have hard numbers on what's the actual user base. So it's a lot by feel. It's a little bit relative and subjective. But there are some things we can do to try to assess what's going on. So first, we wouldn't have spam if there wasn't some success, right? Like no one's spamming just, like this other network that has 2 users. And the other thing is that I also had the feeling that it was just Bitcoiners. So I started unfollowing everyone and just replacing my contact list with someone that is not a Bitcoiner, but that I know is on Nostr. So I did that with, I did it first with Ravel. So I was just following whoever he was following for a couple of days. And then I did that with photographers. And there is non-Bitcoin conversations going on. It's just that most of the Nostr developers are Bitcoiners, so we tend to have the same kind of echo chambers. But I think the growth is there. There is a lot of work to do, but we're doing that work. So I'm very, very, very hopeful that the growth is there, and the building blocks are so strong that we just need to keep cranking.
I think one really interesting objective measure of the success of the network is I like to see like basically zaps per second, what's happening at any given day. Because I realize like if a lot of people are using the network and a lot of people are zapping, that's like, because I mean, it's harder to fake zaps, like actual lightning payments. So that's one way I've been looking at like the health, like how much zaps per day are going through the network. So measuring the economic health of the network as a whole might be an interesting indicator.
Yeah, when I wrote Sublife, the speed of the feed absolutely surprised me. Like I was not expecting that feed to move that fast.
What do we have? Like, what's the number of total Bitcoin zapped over the network? I think it's like
I
think it's up to
I
7
haven't
to 10
computed that in like I don't know. I think I computed that within 3 months, back in March, I think it was. But yeah, I haven't looked at the number again.
Yeah, like one thing I can see on my node, because I have my node hooked up to my LN address, is like, every month for the past like 2 or 3 years, because I've been running a node since 2018, and like usually I get like 1 or 2 payments a month, but like ever since I put my Lightning address in my Nostr profile, I'm up to like 3,000 to 4,000 like zaps received, like Lightning payments received on my node, which is like, that is substantial. That is like, a lot of people might be skeptical of Nostr, like, oh, why are we distracting? Like, we should be talking about Bitcoin, not Nostr. But I really see as Nostr as like the purple pill is like, it makes the orange pill go down easier in some sense, right? And it's bringing, it's exposing people to Bitcoin who might not necessarily care about Bitcoin. And I think right now as a community, we're kind of insular, and we kind of talk to the same people all the time. We go to the same conferences. But Nostr is an opportunity to bring new people into this space and just like, sneak in a little bit of orange pill and they don't even realize it, so.
Yeah. I mean, speaking about other people on Nostr, what I was surprised is if you just look through other hashtags that are available, like there is photography Nostr, for example. So maybe it's just discoverability problem, but that's one of the problems that I perceive on Nostr. Another one is, well, be honest, when me and Kali did those zaps back and forth, so like fake.
Zap washing, we call it.
Yeah, zap watching. Like that's another problem because you can easily like fake those counters. But what are the problems that you're most excited about solving on Nostr, like Pablo?
To me, what I'm focusing my time on the most is on these non-social media use cases, because I think selling on social media is really hard because you need the network effects, right? If your friends are not on social media, you're just not going to use that social media. So it's kind of hard. So, and what I want to show is how good Nostr is for the non-social media use cases. And that's why I'm started building tools like Highlighter that go after a completely different set of users that are just going to discover that their Notion-like application or their Readwise-like application also have a social graph that transcends that use case. And it's a compounding benefit for the user. So that's why I'm focusing my time, because I think that's the path that is going to have the most significant impact on the user count that we have.
And you brought up Highlighter. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Highlighter, I started working on that immediately after reading a piece that Gigi wrote called Purple Text, Orange Highlights. And the idea is that you can create a Nostr event which represents a highlight. And a highlight is something that you deem worthy. And like you're reading a book, you're reading a Medium article, you're reading a Kind One, whatever it might be, and you see something that strikes you that is important and you want to keep. So I wrote the Highlighter as a way to be able to select some text and create a Nostr event. And what's really cool, because a lot of times we say, wow, we're going to build it on Nostr. What does that mean, right? Well, it means that it's going to have all the benefits of being in Nostr, which are, it's not just the censorship resistance, which is amazing, but most people could not care less about that. But it's the interoperability across any kind of use case. So you can have a highlight, and then someone can see what you highlighted, and then a discussion can ensue from that highlight. Whereas in Readwise, which is an application that does something similar with Kindle, whatever you highlight, you might put a comment, but because you don't have your social graph there, that comment doesn't create a discussion, which to me is the most interesting aspect. If a friend of yours gives you a book that they've read, and oh, this book is amazing, and you notice that the book is highlighted and it has notes on the margins. I mean, that note on the margin, that's absolute gold. That's where you're going to read first. Imagine if on that book you can have a discussion with your friend and with your other friends around that note on the margins. So these kind of use cases to me is absolutely amazing.
And this is why this is pretty much my favorite thing about Nostr that not many people are exploring right now. And this is what Pablo's doing, is exploring these like interesting use cases of other non-social media use cases. So for instance, like the highlighter example, when you can make a clip, like we were saying, of things online. Now this is data that's getting generated by his application. And now Damus, as a social media client, can actually show these like highlights in the timeline. Or maybe there's some new use case that someone comes along that's like, sharing their music, or, and this other micro app takes off, and I can start using the data from that app. And so, and then I'm also empowering that micro app with the social graph from Damus. So you're creating these like insane network effects at a protocol level that is, I think it's going to start to steamroll. And so when people like say like, oh, well, Nostr's like this small social media thing, it's like, actually, no, it's like, it's much bigger, and it's growing, and it's like the network effects are going to be kind of crazy in the future, I think.
Yeah, the way I see it is that the network effects of the social media use case, they compound with the social effects of the highlighting use case, which compound with the network effects of the music client applications, which compound, and it's network effects times network effects of every single use case of anything you can do on the internet.
And we have Lightning hooked into everything. So it's like, so now it's like, so now everyone using those, making a highlight, you can like zap a highlight. Like, that's a great, like, thanks for sharing that. Now you can send them like 50 cents. And now so now like Lightning is going to be put in front of everyone with all these new applications. So it's exciting, I think.
Yeah, I also like, this is one of the big points of Nostr, that it's not just the social media protocol, and it didn't start like this. So it started to be, the plan was to have a decentralized market, which is censorship resistant, right? So from a technical perspective, if you look at Nostr, it's basically the publish-subscribe design pattern with 3 cryptographic functions on top of it: hash, sign, and encrypt. Right? So this is what you have at its core. And yeah, the rest is just business logic that should and does develop on the client side. So it's not on the relay, it's not on the server. So you don't depend so much on relays updating or understanding something. And yeah, this design pattern is very powerful. So you, from let's say from the first public internet applications like forums, right? So it's you go and you publish to a topic, and other people subscribe, and you get notifications, right? And Internet of Things stuff. Right? It's like your devices can publish information, and your mobile app just subscribes and see everything that happens.
Yeah, because for those that don't know, the way this originally started is, Fiat Jeff was looking into decentralized markets, then talking with Ben Ark, and it really protocol started from there. And it's all about the format of event, like everything in Nostr is a JSON. So from there, Vlad, as you say, there are some cryptography, but not much. Getting back to where we started, like what are problems that you are excited about solving on Nostr? Because I know you're working a lot of having your data locally,
right.
having it signed. So
right. So this was one of the promises of Nostr, right? So you have relays, but if let's say those relays are stopped, even all of them, you can spin up your relay and take your data and just have all your history and reputation there. But currently, most of the people they don't just care about their data. They use it. They use their public key or their private key as a username and password, and they leave everything on the relays. Right. So one of the things that we have done is a Nostr signing device, which is a very cheap hardware device. I have one here, so it's this big, and it costs like $10, depends where you buy it. And now there's even one which is cooler. It's like a stick, right? So basically, you don't have to put your private key in the browser anymore. You put it on this device, on the signing device. You plug it into the USB, and there is a Chrome extension, and basically the device is going to sign all this data for you. And in the future release, we're going to have these signed events also stored on an SD card. Right? So basically, everything that you publish, like whatever event you're going to create, is going to be on an SD card. So even if all the relays go down, you can spin up your own, and you have the data there. So you have lost nothing.
that's really exciting, having all your data, because again, all you need is to save a bunch of JSONs.
Yeah, and text is not so big, right? So text is really cheap to save.
Yeah, well, excited to see that. Will, problems, zap washing, and all of that. What's the
honestly
problem?
the biggest problem that I see from our users is like they join the app and then they just see one person, which is usually just me, just like because I like post way too much. Because I make them follow me because it's as a joke. It's like MySpace Tom. Like, so they're like, who's this like random like laser-eyed person in my feed? So I think we need ways to like show other people like what a feed actually looks like. And we actually have a perfect tool for this, and this is supported in almost every client, which is just you can actually log into anyone as their pub key and see what they see in their feed. Like, it's a really cool feature to kind of break your bubble. So maybe this could just be an easier thing. I know you had a thing where you could replace your entire contact list with someone else's contact list, which is kind of cool, temporarily. So maybe that's just an easier thing. Maybe I had this idea in Damus where you can click a profile, and then you just become that person in the app while you're using it. And then the people you follow, in their perspective, also adds it to your previous contact list. So it might be a cool way to like jump into someone's world, follow the people you find interesting, jump out of the world, then jump. So I don't know, there's cool things like that we could do to improve discoverability. Like we're trying to avoid algorithms because, some people are trying to avoid algorithms. Damus, we haven't really tackled it because it's just like we like that chronological timeline. But obviously some people like the TikTok experience where they're just swiping and they don't have to follow people or think. So we need to find maybe there's a balance in between that we can have like your customizable algorithms, like where you can choose what you want to see, and maybe there's a marketplace for algorithms that you can explore. So there's a lot of those like algorithm ideas I'm really interested in exploring just to help the discoverability aspect. Yeah,
and really for me as a longtime developer, what's so exciting to see in Nostr is this almost all of you here, like you're using Nostr as your playground, and then well. I mean, I need to hear more about Dave. Will there be Dave 2, Dave 3?
Dave.
Can you explain the audience what Dave is for those that
So
don't know?
yeah, Dave was just kind of like a fun. It wasn't actually originally called Dave. It was just called like GPT-3. But I renamed him to Dave because I realized people like to, anthropomorphize our AI mass overlords. So yeah, I made this bot, this OpenAI bot on Nostr called Dave, and all it does is you can mention him, and then he'll like see the thread that it's in, and it'll compile all the usernames from the thread and everything that they're saying, and it'll send that entire thread to OpenAI server, and it knows what's happening in the network. So anytime you like mention him in a thread, he can like understand the conversation. He can respond with useful. So it's basically putting ChatGPT into Nostr, and just seeing it interact. And it actually feels like it's a person on the network that you're interacting with. Because sometimes he can be a little stuffy, but I tried to like change his prompt so that he'd be like funnier and less like boring and like. But so yeah, it's kind of cool that you can kind of inject these non-human entities in the network. But again, that's going back to the concern is like you don't really know if you're talking to a bot or a real person. And that's something that you have to deal with on a decentralized network. So.
But what I've actually saw is that people do like talking to bots. I mean, what did we have Jack Dorsey talking with Dave for like whole day?
It's like the whole day, like Jack's just talking to my bot. I'm like, okay, Jack.
Yeah, and then we had Mike Brock debating Dave on,
He's doing like philosophical debates against like this AI bot, and it's like, okay, and other people are jumping in the debate. It's like, what is happening? It's just so ridiculous. It's like, but this is the things you do. It's like, since no one controls, like no one's gonna boot that bot off the network. They can't, right? It might be annoying to a lot of people, but it's, you don't have to follow it, right? And you can mute it, so.
Yeah. But, Pablo, is that the same way you come up with your tools, man? Like, how did Zap Live start? It's just you want something and...
Zap Live was super funny. So I saw the NIM57, and I wanted to see like the zaps. And I noticed that no one had built it. And I said, okay, I guess I'll check it tomorrow. And then after 2 days of checking, it's like, I can't believe that this is not ready yet. So I put my daughter to sleep, and I started working on it, and I published it by the time I was going to bed. And the next day I wake up, and there's like well, not a million, but a lot of people using it. And I was like, okay, this is like super weird. It's a toy that it's barely functional.
Yeah, you might have seen it was on the screen where you can see all the zaps happening on the network, which is kind of cool. So. It was an awesome example of a micro app where it's pulling data, which is zaps, which is just some spec that I threw together because I wanted to put Lightning payments into Nostr and have them shown in clients. And so he was able to take the zap data from my spec, build a web UI that shows all the zaps streaming it on the network. Obviously, probably not the best privacy for privacy. Like people are sending, well, you can send anonymous zaps and private zaps, but it's just cool that you can actually see the activity. So.
And it's amazing because a lot of people still don't know to this day that the Lightning Network is functional, it's there, and you show them that, and it's like, wait, I thought that Bitcoin was slow and very expensive, and why are these people sending these very small transactions? And it's very shocking, 2023, and still a lot of people don't know that this is happening already.
Very early on the network, we had a bunch of people join, just random people, not necessarily Bitcoiners. A lot of .eth people were joining the network. They're like, this Lightning stuff is really good. What the heck? I've never heard of this. It's like yeah. They're just they're in their own bubble. These Ethereum people, they don't realize that Lightning actually works. So
where's the Lightning token?
Yeah, they're like, what? Yeah, I get that asked a lot. Where's the Damus token? I'm like, it's Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the Damus token. Yeah.
Well, a lot to unpack there, but Vlad, I also want to get your input on how do you come up with ideas on Nostr tools?
Ben told me how to do.
Okay,
build this.
It worked for Fiat Jeff, so yeah. But Pablo, besides Zap Live and then Highlighter, what's your other favorite tool that you coded, and can you also talk more about just how easy it is to build on top of it? It's even frustrating to the point that you have all these nips now starting, but tell me about tool and then the easiness of building on Nostr.
Yeah, I think that's what struck me as the most impressive thing about Nostr is just how super easy. Within 10 minutes of reading a spec, you can write something, and it works. So since 2021, I was playing with /tags on hypercores, which is a different protocol. tries to achieve something similar in a completely different way. And I was, back in 2021, the end of 2021, I started trying to build like a Twitter client or Twitter-like experience using slash tags, and I wanted to kill myself. It was so hard, and when something doesn't work, it's really hard to debug. And I was still able to build some stuff, like my website was running off of hypercores and stuff like that. But then when I tried and wrote my first very simple script using Nostr, it was literally 10 minutes. And then what was the aha moment is when I changed something on this application or this script that I wrote in 10 minutes, and it was updating demos because of just WebSockets. You get you get the problem of synchronization, like inter-process communication. It's solved for free because of how the protocol works, and the fact that by default you get a really hard computing problem solved for you. That to me was absolutely impressive. It blew my mind. And that's what I started working on NDK because I started thinking, which is sort of like a library for developers to be able to write clients. One of the things that I thought is, okay, it's so easy to write Nostr applications, or what I call naive clients for Nostr, that a lot of people are going to end up developing clients for Nostr. So I think it's important to solve the hard problems for them so that they can just focus on their application and they don't have to concern themselves with gossip protocol, relay synchronization, and like all these things that or caching, or these things that are a little bit harder to solve. But yeah, the ease, I think it's just an incredible selling point for developers.
Yeah. What do you think, Will, about easiness to develop? And what do you think about all the nips that we now have all open?
Yeah, I mean, this is what initially attracted me to the protocol is when Fiat Jaff, he just put up this markdown document with a big description. It was like you could understand the spec in a single markdown document, and that's so rare in protocol at the moment. If you look at the email protocol or like literally any other internet protocol, it's just like here's your novel that you have to read today. So the fact that you could just digest it in one sitting and just build it a client, I built Damus at the first iteration on a weekend, I think. And I'm like, and I've never even built an iOS app before that, and I was just like, the fact that I could do it, I was like, that gave me enough confidence. Like, wow, this could be it. So yeah, so I agree. That's the best part of it, I think.
Vlad?
What was the question? So
the question is easiness of building on top of the Nostr, and then any comments on nips that we have.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
Right, so on nips,
By the way, nips are Nostr improvement proposals.
Yeah.
possibilities.
We're not just into weird.
Yeah.
What are they? How would you?
Oh yeah, so they're actually called Nostr implementation possibilities. I think there's
Oh.
it's people that say, anyway. But there's this misconception that since there's hundreds of nips that it just seems like a complicated protocol. But there's actually only one required nip, and that's nip 01. Everything else is optional, and most of the stuff is actually truly optional. There's some stuff that you might need, like the contact list, but there's actually a lot of applications might not even need your contact list. So nip 01 just defines the structure of the messages, which are just messages have contents, they have a signature, they have a pub key, some tags, which has some metadata in there, and a create a date. That's all there is. It's just a JSON. You send it over a website.
I don't really agree that they're optional. For example, if you take the event deletion nip, right? If a relay doesn't implement that, then
Sorry, which one?
event deletion nip now.
That's not optional. That's completely optional.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If a relay doesn't implement that,
Yeah.
then your feed might look really strange because you see all kind of old messages.
Well, I
and
mean,
so on.
Damus doesn't even. I don't know. A lot of relays wouldn't want it. You could write a relay that doesn't implement that nip, and that's completely fine.
Yeah, but
Because deletion is that's already the controversial topic on Nostr, which is should you be able to delete data you send on the internet to multiple places? Because this idea of deleting something is actually it really should be called a request deletion, because you can't force those relays to delete something if you ask them to, right?
It's a lie. So I think it's important to understand that it's a lie.
Yeah.
yeah, and let's say for me, many of the nips are not really not NIPs, they are more like standards. For example, in Nostr market, you just have to like reserve your kind. So you have 30,018 for a product, 30,017 for a stall. But the relay is ignorant of this, right? So the ignorant just has to implement replaceable events, parameterized replaceable events, and it's going to support markets and all other kind of application, right? So there is a NIP there, NIP 15, but that it's more like a NIP standard, and people who try to understand Nostr shouldn't really bother with that and go and read it.
Yeah, if you're writing a relay, you definitely have to know more NIPs because there's a lot more stuff. Like there's command results, which the NIP that I introduced, which allows you to get like an OK response that it actually was saved to the database. That's kind of important for a lot of applications. So yeah, so if you're writing a relay, you have to know a little bit more NIPs. But if you're writing a client, it really depends on what type of part of the network you're building for. So.
Yeah. As for developers here on stage, we touched on a lot of technical topics, but let's also talk to non-developers in a sense. Like, why would anyone now that has a Twitter account, why should they open a Nostr account?
I mean, I just see like Nostr as like a place where you can plant your free speech flag and just have a dedicated. You'd have a dedicated relay if you wanted to, or just it's a way of escaping big tech's control and you're not being like I find there's so much like manipulation in terms of the algorithms and the things you're fed from these companies. So just having like no algorithm is already pretty nice, and the fact that it's on an open protocol that you can build on top of. So like okay, maybe you don't care about any of that stuff. Maybe you care about money. Maybe you like making money. Nostr is a good place where you can just post, send stuff, create content, and receive sats in real time. I've heard like someone say, oh, well, Twitter has that tip button on their profile, but it's like, so did Damus for the longest time. I actually had it in the same spot that Twitter did, and like no one ever zapped. The minute I put the zap button on a post, like the like button, all of a sudden like, boom. So until Twitter puts like that button on the post, like people don't realize small design things like that are very important, and just having that zap button replace, be next to the like button, or eventually replace the like button it's just a really cool feature. So.
And I think we're underestimating like how powerful Twitter is and all the social media stuff, right? So like now in Turkey they censor the opposition, right? So this is a big deal. Like they can choose a president, they can choose a senator, or whatever they need, so they can control the political system. Yeah, and that's why like Nostr can be a really big deal, right? So you're fighting with the state and the oligarchs and all the rich people. And it couldn't be like one company that does this. Even if we believe Elon Musk that he's honest and tries to change it, he'll not be able to do it. It's just one man against the system. It has to be decentralized.
So it's basically open a Nostr account to support rules, not rulers. Like that's how I understand it.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, because people they say like, oh well, we have Elon now. Elon cares about free speech and everything's gonna be fine. Like, but he just appointed a new CEO, and like who knows if she has the same values that he does, and what if he doesn't have time to watch what's going on over Twitter? It's just going to go back to what happened before. So you have to make it impossible to do censorship. It's impossible for the state to intervene and take down things like in the case of Turkey. So Nostr is the only solution I see that makes like rules not rulers. That's what it should be.
Amen. So Pablo, why should people open Nostr account other than using your amazing tools?
Oh, there is no other reason. I think most people, like I said before, most people don't care about censorship resistance. They don't care about these things. They know what's going on at Facebook. They don't care. The user base keeps on growing of boomers. If you don't find a compelling reason to use Nostr right now, it's okay. Don't use it. But the reasons to use Nostr are just going to keep on growing and growing and growing. This ecosystem is going to get exponentially better with every single application that is created, with every single use case that we support. It's a little bit like what the competition between Lightning Network and MasterCard or Visa. They are absolutely enormous, and they do a transaction volume that is, Lightning Network is nothing in comparison. But Lightning Network gets exponentially better with every single player, right? That's what Jack Mallers is always talking about. Every single player that comes in benefits the others, whereas MasterCard, they need to keep improving and working to increase their own system, but they don't benefit with what's happening on Visa or American Express or these other. This is the exact same thing. You don't find a compelling reason. You don't want to leave Twitter. You like it. You want to use Twitch or whatever it is. Just stay there. But there will be so many reasons to join, and all it takes is one reason to join, one use case that you think it's better than what you're currently using. Once you're there, you have a pub key, you have a, depending on the application that you're using, you'll have a social graph, and you'll start seeing that the value that you get from Nostr starts exponentially increasing as you transition to other use cases.
Open networks win, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, and most likely people will not say, I'm using Nostr. They're going to say, I'm using Damus, I'm using this application. Just like now, they're not saying we're using HTTP. Right? They're just using Google and Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big one. And when I talk with people why they should open an Nostr account, it is that open networks win. And the sooner you start building that reputation and interacting with network, like the easier it is because you're getting in early. And for a lot of people, though, there was always a question of sustainability. And this is where I want to touch a little bit on that because sustainability is either like non-profit efforts and then for-profit companies. And I see big news on Nostr in both categories. So for those that don't know, we recently had a big donation by Jack Dorsey through OpenSats, $10 million, of which 5 will go to Nostr development. So can I get a round of applause for that? Thank you, Jack, for that. And when you saw that, Pablo, like what was it like, okay, now this will be sustainable for years to come. What were the first thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely huge, and it certainly helps a lot. I know it's been the talk because I've been having those conversations. It's been the talk of the town with Nostr developers. How are we going to keep on doing this? And I think at these such early stages where the network is so small that absolutely no one can make a living on Nostr, no one. It's very important to have these funds as a way to bootstrap that survivability of the network. So yeah, I think it's absolutely essential to have something like this because I was working at Swan Bitcoin until like last month, and I was living like this double life of having a full-time job and then having a full-time job of working on Nostr things on my spare time, and it's not sustainable, right? So yeah, giving the opportunity to other developers to have these, okay, I have the next year covered. I can focus on this client, on this real implementation, whatever it may be. Like I know Kamari was really eager to be able to focus on real implementation, and you have a daytime job, you have a family, you can't just YOLO. Having these funds it's very, very important.
Yeah, and Kamari, for the context, Kamari maintains one of the most popular relay implementations. Vlad, sustainability of Nostr development.
Well, yeah, at the end, somebody has to make money to keep going, right? So my hope is that on the server side, on the relay side, it's going to get more stable and it's not going to require so much developer work over time. So let's say all the focus will be on the edges. People are going to build application, and that's better because they'll spend their own money to build it because they think they can make a profit somehow. Maybe, some people will just build applications and to insert ads in them or whatever, but they might be discarded. Some people might just run relays, really big relays, and just want to be the #1 relay. This is also like an attack vector. If we get the Google relay or big relay where you find everyone and it works all the time, it's efficient, all that. And for convenience, people will just say, I'm just going to connect to this big relay and I get everything that I want. And then, just like we have now with email, right? So it's, because also SMTP is a protocol, but there are a few email big guys that control everything. People will prefer convenience over knowing what actually happens. So yeah, that's also a way to make money, but also a risk. Because like for Google, people at the beginning when they started, you're going to make money just by putting a small ad there on the search bar, but it turns out it's a big deal. Right? So we'll see. It should be at the end a free market solution that will emerge.
because I know you will have a lot of, you even like explore this monetization, because not only is Bitcoin token of your app, but it's token of Nostr. You know?
No, I really think that going back to sustainability, what we're talking about, is like Zaps and Lightning and just scale is the thing that's going to make Nostr sustainable. And I've been thinking about this a lot in terms of like how is Damus going to make money? How are the relays going to make money? So I think the key is, we need to get people to like be zapping more. And so I have this new feature in Damus where in the test flight right now, where we call it one-tap zaps. So you use this technology called Nostr Wallet Connect. So you can connect to any wallet backend, CLN, LND, LB, and it basically allows Damus to programmatically pay Lightning invoices. So that's going to allow us to do very efficient client-side splits. Mm-hmm. So imagine every time someone wants to like zap anyone else on the network, they can then send a percentage of that zap, or on top of that zap, a percentage to all the people they want to support. So right now in Damus, you can support Damus by sliding a little slider when you attach a wallet, and then every time you zap someone, it also sends some to me. And so it's not right now like it's nice. It's not enough for me for this to be sustainable, even just for Damus. But that made me realize, that's aligning my incentives to encourage or to build features that's going to make people want to zap more and to build the economic health of the network. So now I'm thinking about like, wow, maybe I should be building marketplaces into Damus. Maybe I should make it easier to buy and sell stuff, and then and then if there's a voluntary fee that I collect off of those transactions, that would make me sustainable. It also make relays sustainable if they configure the relays or they configure their zap to go to the relays as well. So I think that's the key. I think Lightning is the key. We just need to build out and keep scaling up and just make it easier to support those entities. So.
Yeah, well, I think we're doing a pretty good job so far, because look, the Bitcoin conference having a Nostr session, but for those that are looking for more Nostr sessions, we were in Costa Rica. We will be in Tokyo and Hong Kong, November 1st to 3rd. All of you will be there, right?
Yep.
There we go. So thanks to the Bitcoin conference for adding this session, but for all of you here in the audience, I'm going to tweet out the link, as well as our fellow panelists, to nostr.world, where you can register for Nostrasia conference. Thanks again to Jack for picking up tab. All you need to do is, tickets are free. You just need to pay for travel and lodging. And on that note, I would
like to add something. I have some giveaways of these Nostr signing devices, so I'll be outside in
yes,
minutes.
Because after this session, please join us in front for drinks and talking about Nostr. And can we get the last round of applause for our panelists?
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.